My son beat me up because the soup had no salt, and in that moment, I realized fear had been running my home. It was a small kitchen, warm with steam and the smell of lentils. I had cooked the soup the way my late husband liked it, light, gentle, careful. My hands shook a little as I set the bowl on the table. I was tired that evening, bone-tired, the kind that settles deep when years of silence pile up. He tasted it once. Then he slammed the spoon down. "Did you forget the salt?" he snapped. "I can add," I began. The slap came fast. Then another. I remember the chair tipping, the floor rushing up, the sound of my own breath breaking. Neighbors later said they heard shouting. No one came in. I curled my arms around my head like I used to when he was a child throwing tantrums. Only this time, he was a grown man. My son. When it stopped, he stood over me, breathing hard, eyes cold. "Don't make me angry again," he said, as if I had chosen this. He left the room. The soup cooled. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick like it always did, steady, indifferent. I didn't cry right away. I felt something worse, clarity. I remembered the first time I excused his temper. The second time I hid the bruises. The 100th time I told myself it was stress, money, bad luck. I had raised him alone after his father died. I had worked double shifts. I had given him my room when he said he needed space. I had taught myself to shrink so he wouldn't explode. That night, as I washed the bowl with shaking hands, I understood the truth I had avoided for years. Love had turned into permission. Silence had turned into consent. And my fear had trained him well. I went to my room and locked the door. For the first time, I didn't plan how to fix dinner tomorrow. I planned how to save myself. The next morning, I woke before dawn. My cheek throbbed. My ribs ached when I breathed. I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back, older, smaller, but awake. I made calls quietly. First, to my sister, the one I had pushed away because she didn't understand. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Come here. Today." Then, to the clinic. Then, to a legal aid office whose number I had saved years ago and never used. I packed a small bag. I didn't take much: documents, photographs, my wedding ring, a sweater my husband used to wear. I left the house keys on the table. When my son woke up and saw the bag, he laughed. "Where are you going?" he asked, casual, confident. "Away," I said. He rolled his eyes. "You're dramatic. You'll be back." I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I walked out. At the clinic, they documented everything. At legal aid, they explained my options. Words like assault, protective order, and eviction sounded unreal when applied to my own child. But facts don't soften just because they hurt. My sister's house felt strange at first, too quiet, too safe. I slept with the light on. I woke at noises that weren't there. Healing, I learned, is loud inside. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my sister's door. He cried. He apologized. He blamed stress. He promised therapy. He asked for another chance. I listened. I believed the tears were real. I also believed something else. Apologies don't erase bruises, I said. And promises don't protect me. He grew angry when I didn't bend. "You're choosing strangers over your own son." "No," I replied. "I'm choosing life over fear." I filed for a protective order. I started the process to reclaim my home legally, the one in my name, paid with decades of my labor. The law moved slowly, but it moved. For the first time, consequences entered the room. And my son learned a lesson I had failed to teach him as a boy. Hands raised in violence don't get to reach for forgiveness on demand. The court date arrived on a rainy morning. I wore a simple dress and my husband's sweater. My hands trembled until the judge began speaking. Evidence was presented. Statements were read. The room stayed quiet. The order was granted. He had to leave the house. He had to stay away. He had to enroll in counseling if he wanted supervised contact in the future. Outside, he looked at me like a stranger. Maybe I was. I moved back into my home with new locks and a new rule: no fear inside these walls. I took classes. I met neighbors. I learned how to rest without guilt. Months passed. I heard through others that he struggled. That he was angry. That he was changing. I hoped the last part was true, for his sake, not mine. One evening, I made soup again. I tasted it. It needed salt. I added it myself, smiling at the smallness of the moment and the largeness of what it meant. If you're listening to this and living with violence, hear me. Being related does not excuse abuse. Loving someone does not require your silence. And leaving is not betrayal, it's survival. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most, and reminds someone, somewhere, that they are not alone.